We're taking you live now to Western Australia, where the Premier, Roger Cook, is providing an update on ex-tropical cyclone Zelia.
The Pilbara people are made of tough stuff. And it's fantastic to hear that the vast majority of people did the right thing, followed the warnings and kept themselves and their families safe. We're not quite out of the woods yet. This system has dumped an enormous amount of rain on the Pilbara and will lead to ongoing flooding in the coming days. Driving in floodwaters is incredibly dangerous. It can be life-threatening. If a road is closed, it is closed for a good reason. Even a small covering of water can wash away a four-wheel drive. It is vital that everyone in the Pilbara continue to follow the emergency advice and don't risk driving in flood waters. We'll continue to work with local authorities to assess the damage and undertake whatever repairs are needed in the coming days. Again, can I thank our hard-working emergency services personnel who still have a big clean-up job ahead of them. I'll take any questions shortly, but in the meantime, I'll hand over to Emergency Services Minister to say a few words.
Thank you, Premier. Look, can I echo the Premier's comments in relation to thanking our emergency services personnel. Both our staff and our volunteers have done an amazing job over the last few days. We were well prepared for this event, and thankfully, this cyclone did not hit headlands, and so the damage has been a lot less than anticipated. So I want to thank the people of the Pilbara for also preparing. This is a reminder, though, that we are in the middle of our cyclone season, bushfire season in the southwest. It's an important opportunity for Western Australians to download the Emergency WA app. Across the Kimberley and in particular in the Pilbara, very few people have downloaded this app. This app is an amazing thing to have to give you the most up-to-date information if there is a cyclone, a flood or a fire coming. So I would urge people in the Pilbara, but also right across the state, to download this to do your part to keep yourself safe. Just in relation to people in the Pilbara, the Premier mentioned that Warralong community and also Goodabinya have been affected. At the moment, we've airlifted about 15 people out of Warralong, and we will continue to move those people out of Warralong this morning. That is because the water level in that community continues to rise, so we want to make sure those people are safe. Overnight, the numbers of people in the evacuation centre in Headland dropped to 4. So people have moved back into their own homes. The evacuation centre remains open for those who are in transit or for those who need to be moved from other communities. We have done very well, the community has done very well over the last few days. So again, I thank everybody involved, and I would urge people to remain safe. As the Premier said, over the next few days, there's plenty of water on the roads in the northwest of the state, and so the roads will be closed. DFES is now working with the major supermarkets to work out how we help them make sure that there's a food supply for those communities. When we had a similar event for Fitzroy Cross and we got barges to move food from Karratha to Broome, and we're looking at those options today. So we'll have further things to say about that later on. Thank you.
Thank you, Premier, and thank you, Minister. As the Premier outlined, severe tropical cyclone Zelia crossed the Pilbara coast around midday on Friday, around 60 kilometres to the east of Port Hedland, as a Category 4 system, with wind gusts likely to 270 kilometres per hour in the core of the cyclone. The peak wind gust recorded at Port Hedland was 120 kilometres per hour, and as the Premier also mentioned, Port Hedland, thankfully, was well to the west of that cyclone core. Zelia weakened as it crossed the coast and continued to move south. The system then tracked just to the west of Marble Bar as a Category 2 system, producing wind gusts up to 109 kilometres per hour and absolutely very heavy to intense rainfall as it did so. There is a severe weather warning which remains current because of the ex-tropical cyclone, and that area extends from south of Marble Bar now through to Meekatharra, and it's current for today, Saturday the 15th. Heavy rainfall in the De Grey River catchment over the last 24 hours has been up to 278 millimetres at Upper North Pole and just over 200 millimetres at Marble Bar since 9 o'clock yesterday. and we've seen widespread totals in excess of 100 millimetres right across the catchment. Now that has caused major flooding in the De Grey system. As the ex-tropical cyclone continues to move south, that rainfall is easing and contracting south of the De Grey. But as I mentioned, an incredible amount of rain has fallen and major flood warnings are current. In fact, record-breaking flood levels have been observed in the De Grey River, and with the peak we saw in the Kungung River near Marble Bar was 10.2 metres. Now that's nearly 2 metres above the previous record of 8.3 metres at that location. And all the river gauges across the tributaries of the De Grey are showing rapid rises and expected to continue into today. The De Grey River at Collinar Pool, where it crosses the highway, is expected to reach major flood levels today. And we're expecting a prolonged flood peak which will last days, if not into the sort of week-long flooding with this event. So with that amount of water on the ground and the continued warnings, I urge people to stay up to date with both the severe weather warnings and the flood warnings, because this situation is still evolving with the amount of rainfall we've seen over the past 24 to 48 hours, and in fact over the past 3 to 4 days associated with Tropical Cyclone Zelia. Thanks, I'll hand over to the Commissioner now.
Thanks, Matt. While the cyclone has passed, we're asking the community to stay alert because the heavy rain and record flooding in parts of the Pilbara is still occurring. The major flooding isn't expected to subside until mid-next week, so conditions are still dangerous. It is extremely important people in an area with a flood emergency warning are aware of the dangers. I'd like to pay tribute to the dedicated team of DFES personnel, volunteers, in particular SES volunteers and staff from other agencies and community groups across the Pilbara who have worked around the clock the past 2 days in particular to protect the communities in that area. Our assessment teams have been mobilised this morning to evaluate the damage. That's our priority today, along with helping people severely impacted by the destructive winds and heavy rainfall. We've had more than 60 calls for assistance across the Pilbara since yesterday, with the majority reporting fallen trees. We haven't had any reports of injuries. If your home has significant damage, like a badly damaged roof or flooding, call the SES for assistance with temporary repairs on 132 500. And as always, if it's life-threatening, call 000. 6 people stayed in the evacuation centre overnight in South Hedland, down from 184 on Thursday night. The Karratha Evacuation Centre had 6 people last night, down from 42 on Thursday night. Road closures, extensive road closures, are still in place, so it is critical that drivers obey the signs. Don't attempt to drive through flooded roads, it's incredibly dangerous. Floods can take control of a four-wheel drive in just 30 centimetres of flowing water. 9 out of 10 floodwater deaths on WA roads involve a local motorist. Don't walk, swim or play in floodwaters. It is far too dangerous. I would like to thank the Pilbara community in particular for the outstanding preparation work they did, including sandbagging and tying down loose items such as outdoor furniture and trampolines, which can be incredibly dangerous during these destructive winds. As we get a clearer picture of the extent of the damage, DFES will continue to work with the local governments and communities in the region to determine what level of support is needed for their recovery journey. Please, as always, download the Emergency WA app and monitor Emergency WA to stay up to date.